We've talked about how God has been misrepresented. In our last conversation, we looked at the nature of God. In this one, I want to talk to you about the character of God, who He is. Now, each one of us has character, maybe some good, some great, some maybe not so great, and some of us are just flat out characters, all right? But we want to talk here about the character of God and what He's really like, so that as we meet God, we can get into that place of understanding what He's really like. Now, the Bible reveals to us tons about what God's like. I don't have my Bible present with me in my hand here, but if I was to show it to you, you would see that I have highlighted with a purple pencil every single name, title, and attribute of God's character. So when I open my Bible, it kind of screams at me, this is what God's like. Okay, so let me talk to you about these things, names, titles, and attributes of God's character. So names, there are oftentimes we run into the names of God in the Bible where He's named something. Like, for example, two of them here. One is shepherd. He is called a shepherd. And I want you to think about that. When you think of a shepherd, you think of a flock. You think of somebody who cares for, protects, feeds, and nurtures a flock. Well, God shows Himself to us as a shepherd because He wants us to know He wants to do those things for us. He also is named as a father, an imagery of God as a heavenly father. And we're going to take a whole conversation and talk about that later on. But that's also one of the names of God. So then we can also talk about titles, the titles of God. And there are many. Well, two of them are King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, what does that tell us about God? Well, He's the King of all kings and He's the Lord of all lords, meaning that He's above and beyond any of them. It also teaches us that God knows how to govern, whether it's our lives or our societies. God is a governor and He cares about us. And see, as you get these names and titles and attributes of God, you need to pause and you need to reflect on them. Well, what does that mean? And He has communicated these things to us about Himself because He knows we can relate to these things in real life. And it helps us see a little bit more accurately what He's like. Now, when we talk about names, titles, and then attributes of God's character, there are things like this. God is faithful. That's one of the things that the Bible teaches us about Him. He is faithful. In other words, He can be counted on. For example, when was the last time you went to bed and you were really anxious about the sun coming up? I would suggest never. Why? Because of the faithfulness of God, the sun has come up every morning and we can count on it. Another attribute of God's character is His mercy. And the Bible teaches us that His mercy is new every morning. In other words, it never runs out and it comes to us fresh every day. God is also very just. He's just and kind in all His ways and doings. Well, see, these are some of His attributes. And how we get to know God's character in His Word is paying attention to His names, titles, and attributes. Now, there are three attributes to His character that are core to who He is. And I think all these others that we talk about are built around these three. So I just want to briefly introduce you to them. The first one is this: God is holy. Now, don't let that word scare you. Holy means set apart. It means He is so other, so different, so much better than we are. He's holy. He's set apart. It means He's completely pure, completely righteous, and completely just. Completely. All right? So God is holy. Secondly, God is love. God is love. And His love for us is lavished on it. It's active. It is self-sacrificing, as we see in the life of Jesus being laid down for us. He's full of loving kindness and grace, and He constantly expresses Himself in things like goodness and forgiveness. God is love, not just choosing love. In who He is, He's love. And the third one is God is truth. He's perfect in integrity. There is no shading of truth. He is without understatement or overstatement. God is dependable and He is full of truth. Holiness, love, and truth are core to the character of God. I want to encourage you to pause to think a little bit about that. Think about God's love for you. Think about His truth and how He wants you to walk in truth or reality in life. And as you ponder that, I look forward to seeing you in our next conversation as we tackle the personality of God.